Until I was 37 years old, I was skeptical of religion, believing it to be nothing more than a lie made up by some people. I felt that heaven and hell were made up. I felt they were all crazy and prided myself on my sanity. Some people are so afraid of death that they fantasize about entering heaven after death, which seems to be a way of seeking spiritual comfort. Once, when I was talking to a friend about religious beliefs, we had a conflict. During this conversation, I frankly expressed my views. My friend was a devout believer. He had a positive view of religion and he believed that it gave him guidance and meaning in his life. In my expression, I may not have fully respected his beliefs. This made him feel challenged and offended. As the conversation progressed, our emotions became agitated and we began to fall into an argument. This led to a deepening conflict between us. When I was 37 years old, I experienced something that completely changed my view of religion. My father, who died at the age of 68, was a very good father and a competent husband. Like me, he was skeptical of religion. During the time my father was suffering from stomach cancer, our family faced great psychological stress. He went through the pain of the disease, but he always tried to stay optimistic and strong. I admired his attitude towards the disease. He did not bow to the pain, but faced each day with perseverance. In those days before he passed away, I had many precious exchanges with my father. He told me to cherish every moment of my life and not to worry about the regrets of the past or the uncertainties of the future. In my last moments, I sat by his bedside and held his hand. I can't put into words the sadness and dismay I felt at that moment. One afternoon, 3 months after my father's death, I was resting in bed at the time. I had just fallen into a deep sleep when, suddenly, I felt that I had appeared in another mysterious place. Smoke filled the surroundings, making it impossible for me to see anything. This place seemed to be completely different from the real world, and I didn't know where I was and couldn't discern the direction. My mood began to become tense. After a while, the smoke gradually began to dissipate. In the process of the fog dissipating, I saw a young man walk out of the mist. I felt some uneasiness in my heart about his appearance. I wasn't sure if he was a good guy or a bad guy. When I saw the young man's face, my mouth opened wide in surprise because that person turned out to be my father. I couldn't believe what was happening in front of me. He wasn't a ghostly apparition, but a complete body. I didn't know what was going on, but I was sure it was my father. I was even more certain of his identity when I noticed his hands. There were obvious scars on his hands because of the previous surgery he had undergone. He stood there quietly, not speaking, just watching me. My father looked very healthy now, completely different from the state he was in before he passed away. Before he passed away, his hair had all turned gray and he wasn't very mobile. Due to the effects of cancer, he looked more like an 80-year-old man. However, now he looks like a 30-year-old young man. My father was wearing a white shirt and gray pants. In this marvelous environment, we do not need to speak. Communication took place in a way that transcended words, simply and directly. I felt a spiritual connection between us and was able to understand each other accurately. This way of communication made me feel very close. I couldn't help but ask my father curiously, "What does it feel like to die?" He answered with a whole lot of words that I could hardly understand. What I understood was that death is not the end, but a new beginning. Death is the liberation and transcendence of the soul. I began to have a deeper understanding of life and death. Curious, I asked my father what this place was. My father explained that this was a transition area, a special space connecting different worlds. He told me that after he left the real world, his soul came to this special transition area. This place did not belong to any particular world, but was a realm between life and death. Here, time and space are not restricted. This explanation shocked me. I had never heard of such a transitional area. When my father told me to look to my left, all the mist had dissipated. A beautiful village unfolded before my eyes, like a fairyland. This village was surrounded by flowers of all colors and fruit trees filled with all kinds of ripe fruits. The houses were situated between the valleys. The houses looked simple and warm. The whole village exuded a peaceful atmosphere that made me feel very relaxed. I noticed that there was also a huge waterfall on the hill. I saw a man approaching us. He had brown hair and was wearing a white robe. He was floating in mid-air and moving very fast. As he approached, I felt a warm energy. He embraced me. At that moment, I was surrounded by intense love, a love so powerful that it was almost too much for me to bear. I felt like a balloon on the verge of blowing up, filled with joy and shock. I felt profoundly that this was real and not a dream. His embrace made me feel warm and caring in a way I had never felt before. No words could describe this feeling. I gradually calmed my inner excitement and tried to stabilize myself. I wanted to connect with this man. Wanted to learn more about the mysteries of life. He communicated with me through telepathy. He showed me a series of images that demonstrated the diversity of life and the vastness of the universe. I felt as if I had traveled through time and space, witnessing the trajectory of countless lives. One image in particular caught my attention, that of God's care for mankind. I saw countless scenes in which God reached out and lightly touched human life with his finger. In these scenes, some people were laughing and others were grieving. God cast a concerned eye in every scene. I saw that in those difficult moments, God always seemed to be quietly watching. Whether struggling through pain or feeling happiness in moments of joy, God never seems to leave the side of mankind. Many people don't realize that God is around, but he is certainly present in everyone's life journey. In addition to his concern for humans, I saw God's care for animals. In another image, I saw a vision of animals living in heaven. They were running in the wide meadow. Such scenes made me realize that heaven is not only a home for human beings, but also a haven for all life, and that God has selfless care for all living beings. In this exchange, I realized God's wisdom. I felt that God's love is everywhere, both in human life and in the world of animals. His love is selfless. The man finally said to me, "Now you must go back." I realized that I needed to return to the real world to continue my journey through life. I said goodbye to him and my father. Under their watchful eyes, I felt endless love and care, a feeling that filled me with courage and strength. I told them that I would always treasure this precious experience and thank them for giving me confidence and inspiration. At the moment of farewell, I felt a flow of emotions that transcended words. Our souls mingled with each other and we conveyed our blessings to each other with our hearts. Slowly, I left that place and returned to the real world. I am grateful to God for giving me such an amazing experience. 3 days later, my sister came to my house. I told her I had a dream about my father. Before I could finish, my sister interrupted me with a surprised expression and said that she also had a dream about her father. I couldn't help but ask my sister, what kind of clothes was my father wearing? My sister replied that he wore a loose white shirt with a pair of vintage gray pants. Father was in a very energetic state, just like when he was young. When I heard my sister's answer, I dropped tears of excitement. Because the dream she described was almost exactly the same as the one I had. The only difference was that I had the dream a day earlier than she did. I was incredulous. Such a coincidence was simply unbelievable. Although there is no way to explain the truth of it all, we are both convinced that it is not a coincidence. This experience reinforces our belief that there may be endless mysteries in life. We may have a special bond with our Father's soul that transcends the limits of time and space. This marvelous experience made me begin to question my previous perceptions. It is so real. I believe time will give me the answer. My mother has been very sad since my father's death. I wasn't sure if I should tell her about my experience. I realized that the topic might touch her inner grief. After I gave it some serious thought, I decided to tell my mother about it. At first, she did not believe my experience. I firmly told my mother that I also saw the cat that I used to have. That cat was a gift from my mother on my 8th birthday. I loved it very much and we had a deep bond. While in heaven, I saw that cat living a very happy life. If someone asks me, do animals go to heaven when they die? I would have to answer honestly, yes. I firmly believe that heaven is not just a place for humans, but a home for all animals. But as I described more details about my father, she became surprised and shocked. My mother shed tears as her emotions became complex and emotional. This is my story. After this experience, I had a completely different view of religion. For me, heaven is no longer a fictional fantasy, but a real and beautiful existence. It is our eternal home, the place where our souls belong. In the face of many people's skepticism, I didn't care. This particular experience may be difficult for others to understand and accept. But I believe that God is all around us and that He loves each and every one of us unconditionally, including all the animals. My father is not gone forever, but has a special connection in some way. I believe I will be reunited with him again in the near future and it will be an eternal reunion. I hope to use my story to convey a sense of hope and belief that heaven is real. No matter what changes life goes through.